and welcome back to Azure Terraformer. There's been a lot of stuff going on with OpenTF, and I wanted to go look at a question that they had on the FAQ. I've been pretty active on Reddit and LinkedIn, talking to folks, definitely with a little bit of humor, maybe a little bit of cutting humor, but I'm just trying to keep it real and have a little bit of fun. Try and keep things lighthearted. There was a gentleman that this person, I don't know who they are actually, but a person that I was speaking with on Reddit, who I was a little snarky, and I apologized. They kind of as politely as you can pointed out I was being rude, and I apologized, and we actually had, I think, a pretty good discourse on this topic of, am I actually a HashiCorp competitor? That question, right? And I have seen this argument made on Reddit and LinkedIn and other places, and I have responded to it. Apparently this has been added to the FAQ. HashiCorp's got an FAQ, OpenTF has an FAQ, everybody's got FAQs, and I'm reading FAQs. That's what I do here. But they added this to the FAQ, and here it is. So it says, I'm a regular Terraform user, and I'm not competing with HashiCorp. Why should I care? Yeah. How do you know you're not competing with HashiCorp? That's not meant to be redundant or snarky question. It doesn't seem redundant or snarky. It seems a little kind of unnecessary though, but I'll give it some time here. The key issue with the BSL is that the wording is intentionally vague. What does competing mean? What does hosting or embedding mean? Who decides? I see your point. Now, I partially agree. I do feel like the BSL is vague, and I see where you're coming from in terms of there is ambiguity about who's competitive or who will be competitive. But I do feel like this question and this monologue that you're trying to incite within me, the audience of this, a regular Terraform user, is pretty hyperbolic, right? I don't think the BSL is that vague for me not to understand exactly who they're talking about in terms of their competitors, because I can go look at HashiCorp's website and see what products they have, and I can immediately tell if I'm a competitor of those products. I think it's that doesn't mean that there isn't. That doesn't mean that there isn't valid criticism of the BSL, right? But this idea that every John Q. Smith Terraform user that works at Acme Incorporated or, Bubba's Big Bank, is somehow going to be competing with Terraform. I think that's plain dumb. And I'm not calling you dumb. I'm saying it's a strategy in like logic and debate where you play dumb. Like you are purposely trying to not understand somebody else's position to win the argument, right? That's what I mean by playing dumb. Like Columbo. I love that show as a kid. Columbo plays dumb. Super smart guy, but he plays dumb to catch the murderer, right? And in this case, it's like, no, we know who the competitor is. We know who's competing with HashiCorp. We know what it means to host Terraform in a competitive offering. We know what it means to embed Terraform in a competitive offering. Now, are there people doing mental gymnastics to try and like unwind whether or not they are actually embedding Terraform? within their solution? Absolutely. There was a really funny post on Reddit where somebody was like, we're fine because we don't embed Terraform code in our solution at all. And then somebody's like, well, actually, here you do. And they linked to the person's own source code where they like are embedding Terraform within their solution. It was pretty funny. Got a lot of upvotes, but just yet another contrarian shill. What are you going to do? So no, I don't think it's unclear right now what it means to be a competitor that hosts or embeds Terraform in your solution. I don't think that's unclear. And they go on, they say the answer to all these questions is that in order to really know if you're a competitor, you have to reach out to HashiCorp. So whether your usage is valid is not controlled by the terms of the license, but instead entirely controlled at the whim of HashiCorp. They get to decide on a case-by-case basis who is and who isn't a competitor, and they can change their mind at any time. Now, inside this, which is filled, in my opinion, with quite a lot of hyperbole, there is a nugget of truth. There is a nugget of truth. And this is a criticism that I have laid against the vagaries of the BSL from the very start. What is a competitive offering tomorrow? Right? It's very clear what's a competitive offering today, but nobody has a crystal ball. What is a competitive offering tomorrow? I think this is a valid point, right? But that doesn't mean it's unclear what it takes to become a competitive offering. However, the roadmap of HashiCorp's own products which is out of the control of me as like a startup company or something like that. I don't know what HashiCorp's gonna do, what business that they're gonna get into tomorrow, right? So that being out of my control, I think that is a slippery slope where it is a potential risk, right? So if you're gonna go start up a company where you're gonna embed Terraform, right? Or you're going to embed HashiCorp technology in it, then you're going to have to think about like long term, and is there a risk that I might eventually become a competitor with HashiCorp? I think that's a normal planning exercise for a startup, to be honest. And I know that's a change, with Terraform like becoming having a less permissive license, right? That is a change, because in the olden days, like, you could just do whatever, right? But I would look for HashiCorp to show leadership in terms of kind of demystifying that, and putting a framework in place for how that's managed. But I think that is going to be, that is going to be an ever-present issue, right? That folks that want to take, HashiCorp's technologies and monetize them are gonna have to think long and hard about that, about the risks associated with that. But I don't think that affects me as a regular Terraform user. That still affects people who are monetizing with people who are monetizing Terraform in a competitive fashion. And then the second issue with this whole, they define what's competitive, their product roadmap defines what's competitive. I think, that also shows another issue, which is really related to HashiCorp's a big company. They have lots of products. Is there, if I compete with them on one of their many product offerings, does that mean I'm the enemy and I can't use Terraform like within my solution? So let's say I'm building an enterprise secrets management software. that doesn't use Vault. I'm not like stealing their Vault technology and like just calling it my own. Okay, so I'm doing a good job there. But let's say I'm deploying my stuff. I'm deploying my Vault competitive offering that doesn't use Vault using Terraform, right? Does that mean I have to use the BSL license and pay them to use Terraform? I think that's a good question. I think that's absolutely a valid question. Now, my interpretation of the BSL is that you'd be fine, right? But I think HashiCorp definitely needs to add clarity there, and I think that's a valid criticism. Absolutely. Like we need clarity on that. If you are going to compete with HashiCorp, can you use any of their technologies? Right? I think can you benefit from the free versions of their technologies? I think that's the crux of the question. Now, what I've read is the spirit of the announcement. The spirit of the announcement, in my eyes, it's about, combating the direct competitors that thought it was a great idea to take Vault and create a secrets management offering from Vault, right? Or the people that thought it was a great idea to take Terraform and make a managed service offering off of Terraform. I understand where this is coming from, but I do feel like there are certain bad faith actors that are purposefully like being hyperbolic to spread fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So that's where I've been a little disheartened by that. And so this FAQ goes on. This is very shaky footing on which to build anything if you're a competitor. We agree there. At every company you ever work at in the future, before starting to use Terraform, the CTO will have to think about whether HashiCorp could possibly consider you a competitor, now or at any time in the future. The legal team at that company will have to wonder if they want to take the risk of allowing a BSL license, or if they should ban it due to all the uncertainty. Every developer at that company will have to wonder if they want to contribute back to Terraform, given there's no certainty that they'll be able to use their own work at a future job. In short, the BSL is a poison pill. So again, this whole paragraph, in my opinion, is just literally fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That's all. This whole paragraph right here is like you could just replace it with three big letters: FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. All you have to do is take a mental exercise and say, okay, at every company, I took logic in college, right? I'm not like a logician or anything, but I do recall that tautologies are pretty easy to disprove, right? At every company you ever work at in the future. Okay, let's say I work at a bank. Okay, there's a CTO presumably at this bank. Will the CTO of that bank have to think about whether they compete, whether HashiCorp considers that bank to be a competitor? Let's think about that, right? Really? Would the CTO at a bank spend time thinking about that? Maybe. If they do, it would be a pretty short thinking workshop, I would think. I would think, right? This is where, to me, this is very hyperbolic. This is very much FUD. Because it's like, if you're in industry, and you're not at a startup company in the infrastructure as code space, or in the secrets management space, or legit in HashiCorp's area, right? Then this statement is just not true. And maybe it's just very myopically written by the author, because they and a lot of the people that they socialize with are in this spot. They're all in companies that just do infrastructure as code and just compete, potentially with HashiCorp, right? But like the vast, like going back to who this is written for, a regular Terraform user, most regular Terraform users work at banks. They work at IT shops at various companies around the country, around the world. They work at IT services companies. You know, they work at that are legit HashiCorp partners, right? That are just trying to provision stuff into the cloud. You know, it's like we're trying to say that HashiCorp is big and large. You know, like that company from Wall-E that is pretty much the last company on earth that does everything, right? Like they compete with everybody. Like, no, I don't think that's true. I guess that's what I would say, you know, in response to this FAQ answer. Ultimately, I don't really think that this is a good faith argument, right? Either that or it's intended for a target audience other than what it claims to be, a regular Terraform user. In my mind, this is we're conflating a regular Terraform user who works at a bank, who works at, you know, different, like in industry, right? Not in tech, who's just trying to provision stuff to AWS or Azure. We're trying to conflate them with somebody who is building an infrastructure as code SaaS. Nope. Sorry. I'm assuming that a lot of people that watch my channel, that listen to me, are regular Terraform users, because that's who I consider my audience. Like people that want to provision stuff to Azure, want to learn how to do it with Terraform. You know, that's why you're here. What do you think? Do you think about whether or not you're going to be a HashiCorp competitor? Do you think that you're going to have to go to your boss and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't use Terraform because HashiCorp might compete with us someday? I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear from you. Do you buy this argument? Maybe I'm off base here. But I worked in consulting for 20 years, you know, before I joined Microsoft, and I worked at so many different companies and had so many different customers from like, the entertainment industry, the logistics industry, banking and finance, insurance, like all these different beer, right? I worked in the beer industry. Okay. Like, is HashiCorp, would HashiCorp ever start a craft beer brewing company? It just doesn't. I'm sorry. Like, this is, in my opinion, hyperbolic, right? But you tell me. Like, am I off base? What do you think? How much time are you going to spend, thinking about if you're a competitor? Anyways, that's it for me, the Azure Terraformer, signing off.